the most powerful woman in Europe, was just exposed on live TV in front of millions of people. And she couldn't answer a single question. Ursula von der Leyen, the woman who led 450 million Europeans, the woman who challenged tech giants like Apple, Google, and Meta, the woman who confronted Elon Musk with the full force of European regulations. She stood at the European Parliament podium, visibly shaking. Members of her own institution went through her actions, piece by piece, document by document, exposing lies and missteps, and then she walked out, not gracefully, not with dignity, with no words left to defend herself. Across 27 European countries, ordinary citizens are demanding the same thing: her resignation. What you are about to see is the full story. How one of the most untouchable officials in European history was brought down in one afternoon. Why it happened, why it was inevitable, and why the European Union will never be the same. The fall of Ursula von der Leyen didn't happen overnight. Years of secret deals, deleted messages, a deep sense of arrogance, all building a foundation for this collapse. She genuinely believed she was above accountability. To understand what happened in that parliament, you need to know the real Ursula von der Leyen, not the polished public image, but the one who operated in the shadows of Brussels, confident no one could expose her. She became president of the European Commission in 2019, under very controversial circumstances. She wasn't the choice of the European Parliament. The public hadn't voted for her. She was chosen in a backroom deal, among EU leaders who wanted someone they could control. Her presidency was confirmed by only 9 votes out of 751. Just 9 votes. That's how close Europe came to never having her as its most powerful executive. But those 9 votes were enough. From that narrow mandate, she built more personal power than any commission president before her. She centralized decisions in her own office, ignoring the normal commission structure. Senior commissioners, elected to manage key policies, were sidelined. Her personal advisors, accountable only to her, made decisions affecting 500 million people. Experienced officials, who had spent decades in the European institutions, found their expertise ignored. This was not how the European Commission was meant to work. It became Ursula von der Leyen's personal operation. 4 years, with almost no consequences. But cracks appeared in 2021, in a very public and humiliating way. The world remembers the incident called Sofagate. April 6, 2021. During a visit to Turkey, Ursula von der Leyen traveled to Ankara with European Council President Charles Michel to meet Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan. Protocol required 2 chairs of equal status for the 2 European leaders. When they entered, both chairs were taken by Erdogan and Michel. Ursula von der Leyen, the highest-ranking EU official, was left standing in front of cameras worldwide. She eventually sat on a sofa at the side, visibly uncomfortable, humiliated, while the 2 men conducted business. The images spread globally. The symbolism was impossible to ignore. Europe's most powerful woman was literally sidelined, pushed to a couch, while men ran the meeting. European feminist groups were outraged. MEPs from all political sides demanded answers. And her resignation. Brussels' official response? Charles Michel's team said the seating was correct, according to protocol. Ursula von der Leyen's team complained privately about the incident, but said almost nothing publicly. The matter was quietly buried under official language, vague institutional answers. Nobody resigned. Nobody was held responsible. Von der Leyen absorbed the embarrassment, smiled, and continued gaining power. as if nothing had happened. This became the pattern of her presidency, causing serious issues, avoiding accountability, moving forward, like the rules didn't apply to her. Nothing showed this pattern more clearly than the scandal now exploding in the European Parliament. The Pfizer text message scandal. During the COVID-19 pandemic, von der Leyen personally negotiated a massive vaccine contract with Albert Bourla, CEO of Pfizer, worth 1.8 billion doses, about 35 billion euros of taxpayer money, the largest public procurement deal in European Union history. Instead of following EU rules for transparency, von der Leyen conducted the entire negotiation secretly, through personal text messages with Bourla, bypassing official procedures. These rules existed for a reason: to prevent corruption, to ensure taxpayers could see how their money was being spent. But none of the messages were recorded, archived, or shared with European Parliament members, the very members who legally had the right to see them. When journalists from the New York Times reported these messages in April 2021, the European Commission responded boldly. They claimed the messages had been deleted, gone forever, from the device used for the largest EU procurement negotiation ever. The European Parliament demanded the messages immediately. The European Ombudsman, responsible for investigating mismanagement in EU bodies, launched a formal inquiry. The investigation found the Commission had engaged in maladministration, failing to preserve, failing to disclose the communications. Essentially an official statement that von der Leyen had broken the rules. Normally, such a finding should have led to immediate parliamentary hearings, formal censure, serious questions about whether she could remain in office. Instead, von der Leyen faced every inquiry with her usual unshakable confidence. She appeared before committees, gave carefully worded answers, admitted nothing. Her legal team buried investigators in procedural delays, slowing inquiries for months. She relied on the political reality. Removing a Commission president required an absolute majority in the European Parliament, a threshold her allies could always block. She was untouchable. She acted this way right up until the moment she entered that Parliament chamber and faced someone who had spent years preparing for this confrontation. Someone who had gathered evidence she never thought anyone would obtain. What that MEP revealed, and what appeared on the screens behind von der Leyen, in front of the full Parliament session, was something her entire legal and communications team had spent 4 years trying to hide. The moment those documents appeared, the carefully built image of European institutional competence and accountability began collapsing. In real time, what was in those documents? And why did seeing them make Europe's most powerful bureaucrat lose her ability to respond? The MEP standing up in the chamber was not someone von der Leyen had ever taken seriously. That was her first mistake. Romanian MEP Cristian Terheș had been filing formal complaints, submitting questions, requesting documents about the Pfizer contract for nearly 3 years. For 3 years, the Commission had stonewalled him, with delays, incomplete responses, the kind of bureaucratic silence Brussels had perfected. Most MEPs would have given up, but he didn't. Most politicians would have moved on to easier battles, with better headlines. Cristian Terheș did not. He built his case carefully, document by document, source by source. He knew the truth was buried under layers of bureaucracy. He understood uncovering it would take time, and he was willing to wait. That afternoon, what appeared on the screen behind Ursula von der Leyen were internal European Commission communications, recovered through legal discovery in an ongoing Belgian court case, leaked documents from inside the Commission, and procurement records the Commission had been forced to release after repeated European Ombudsman rulings. Together, these documents revealed a story far worse than anyone outside Brussels had imagined. The Pfizer contract wasn't just negotiated informally through text messages. Documents showed the Standard Procurement Committee, a group of independent experts designed to evaluate major contracts and prevent political interference, had been deliberately excluded by von der Leyen's personal direction. Internal emails showed officials were told, "Do not involve the normal procurement oversight process." One senior advisor wrote, "The president wants this handled personally. Bypass standard channels." That single line, displayed in huge font, for everyone in the chamber to see, one of the most damaging things ever revealed in a European parliamentary session. But it was the pricing documents that shocked everyone. The contract personally negotiated by von der Leyen with Albert Bourla, CEO of Pfizer, set a per dose price far higher than prices negotiated by individual European countries at the same time. Higher than prices other non-EU nations paid for the same vaccine. Belgium had secured doses at a lower price before the Commission contract replaced those individual deals. Denmark had similar data. The centralized Commission deal, handled secretly through personal messages, later deleted, cost European taxpayers billions more than transparent, competitive procurement would have. Terheș's calculations, using the Commission's own released data, showed citizens overpaid between 7 and 13 billion euros. 7 to 13 billion euros wasted, because one woman negotiated secretly with a pharmaceutical CEO. At that moment, von der Leyen at the podium visibly changed. This was no longer the calm, controlled Commission president, the one who had faced down Elon Musk, who lectured tech giants about European rules. This was someone seeing evidence she thought was permanently hidden appear on a screen in front of 705 MEPs, dozens of cameras, millions of viewers across Europe. She reached for her prepared notes, started giving her usual statements about procedures, institutional rules, ongoing legal matters, trying to avoid commenting on the documents. And then, something happened Brussels had never seen before. The chamber would not let her finish. Not from the left, not from the right, not from the center. MEPs from parties that had never agreed on anything in years were all standing, shouting the same word, in 7 different languages. One word: resign. The session chair tried 3 times to restore order. Each attempt only made the crowd louder. Italian MEPs, on opposite ends of the political spectrum, stood side by side. French conservatives and progressives, who had spent years attacking each other, united in outrage. Even members of von der Leyen's own European People's Party, who had defended her through every previous scandal, stayed silent. That silence from her allies was far more damaging than any shouting from her opponents. When your own party won't defend you, at the moment you need them most, the whole chamber sees it. Your political protection has quietly vanished. Ursula von der Leyen tried to speak 2 more times. Both attempts failed within seconds. The noise made it impossible to continue. Her communications director, sitting in the gallery above, was constantly on his phone. Anyone familiar with political crisis management knows what that means. The spin team was already scrambling. Emergency messages being drafted. Friendly media contacts alerted. Damage control measures activated. But this time, the crisis was moving too fast, too publicly, to be controlled. While the chamber was in chaos, clips of the documents on the screen behind a speechless von der Leyen were being shared by millions of Europeans. Millions who normally never watch Parliament. People were watching because they had waited years for this moment. She gathered her papers, spoke briefly to an aide behind her, and then Ursula von der Leyen, President of the European Commission, walked away from the podium in the middle of a live parliamentary session, breaking procedural rules of the very institution she led. She disappeared through a side door as the chamber erupted behind her. The walkout lasted 11 seconds, filmed from 4 angles. By the time she reached the corridor, those 11 seconds had already been seen by 34 million people. But what awaited her outside was even bigger than her crisis team expected. The story didn't end when she left the chamber. It was only beginning. What happened over the next 4 hours made everything inside that room look like a minor opening act. This was not a political disagreement. This was the complete unraveling of one of the most protected bureaucrats in modern European history. Live. On television. With no way to take it back. No way to erase those documents. Ursula von der Leyen spent 5 years building an empire of regulatory power, believing no parliament, court, journalist, or official could ever touch her. She was wrong. The 34 million people who watched those 11 seconds are proof. Her wall of protection has fully collapsed. The European public is no longer silent. Protests erupted in Brussels, Berlin, Paris, Warsaw. Petitions demanding her resignation collected over 2 million signatures. In less than 48 hours, MEPs who had been afraid to challenge her now speak openly. On record, the political and institutional protection that made her untouchable has vanished overnight. Somewhere in a Brussels corridor, the woman who once threatened Elon Musk with the full power of European regulations is finally facing something she never did before. Real consequences. The story is far from over. The Belgian court case continues. The European Ombudsman investigation has reopened with new evidence. 3 EU member states have requested an independent audit of the Pfizer procurement process. Inside the European Parliament, the vote count for a formal censure motion is quietly being prepared by people who now believe she can actually be held accountable. The next chapter is coming, and we'll cover it. Resignation demands. The censure vote countdown. The one document her legal team is desperately trying to hide. Comment below. Do you think von der Leyen survives this? Or is her time finally over? Hit the like button if this video shared information the mainstream media isn't covering. The truth is coming out, and we'll be here for every step.